Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for the AAVIP Virtual Business in Brief mini conference. AAVIP is an association that is member driven and a not-for-profit association that depends on its members to operate. It can be isolating operating a home-based or virtual business, so we want you to know that we are here for you with ongoing support and encouragement. As an Australian association, we are also here to support you and can represent your interests to funding bodies, government and non-government decision makers, and keep you informed and abreast of any legislative or other changes likely to affect your business. We've also recently launched our accreditation where you can become an accredited virtual business. More information will be provided to you shortly. Visit aavip.com.au and sign up as a priority member to access the accreditation checklist now. Enjoy the upcoming webinar.
Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Virtual Business in Brief conference. Today we have Morgan Jones from Big Insurance Group, and he's going to be answering all of your answers to your insurance questions today. This could be about your business, your home, whatever you like. Morgan, thank you so much for doing this presentation for AAVIP, and welcome.
Thanks, Susan. It's my pleasure to be here, really, and I appreciate the opportunity to sort of come and record this for you guys and to hopefully be of assistance to answer some questions. The intended format was to be a bit of a question and answer, but we're sort of lacking in a few participants here, but that's okay because I've got some questions that a couple of people have already pre-sent in to me. So I'll run through those, and if there are any other questions, then yeah, you can feel free to ask me. So while, I may as well give an introduction about myself, sort of what we've been doing for the virtual assistants anyway. So having involved with yourself and with Liz Parker, our companies have sort of worked together for the last few years, or 4 to 5 years, on coming up with something for the virtual assistants in the way of insurance and sort of allowing you guys to access group discounts and sort of better policies you would otherwise be able to get. And I think, sort of more to come up with something which is sort of very effective. And we've spent a lot of time sitting down with CDU, the insurer, working out how we can do something quite special for you guys. And what we've been able to create there is the combined professional indemnity and public liability insurance. But more broadly than that, my goal is to sort of make sure that all of you guys are not only properly protected, but that you have a good understanding of the risk and how insurance works. So ultimately, I want to be able to sort of, get everyone to understand that insurance isn't just a necessary evil that people have to buy in their business. It's a tool that they can use to sort of give themselves peace of mind and allow them to grow unrestrained by the risks that they face. So the benefits really of insurance for virtual assistants are threefold. Firstly, it protects the individual businesses, the individual virtual assistants. It protects the businesses that you work for. Secondly, it sort of covers them if you make a mistake, and that way they're sort of not going to suffer a loss because of it. And thirdly, it protects the integrity of virtual assistants and the virtual industry more generally. Like if people who are using your services can see that you're genuine professionals and that you take steps to mitigate your risk and things like that, they're going to want to do business with you, and it sort of shows you guys are a bit of a force to be reckoned with in the market. So anyway, I'll sort of move on. I'm not sure that I have enough people here to ask the questions that I had for you guys. It won't give a true indication, but basically the gist of what I was trying to say is that more people will insure their cars than what would insure professional indemnity and public liability because they see the risk as more certain, but or more likely to happen. But while the risk is more likely to happen, the actual cost of that risk is probably far less than what a professional indemnity or a public liability claim is going to cost you. So at the other end of the scale, you have possible astronomical consequences which you can't gauge. So you want to be covering those off with insurance just as much, if not more so, than you do with your car insurance and things like that. Because with your car insurance, you can say, oh, well, that's going to cost me about $10,000. With a professional indemnity insurance claim, you have absolutely no idea how much it's going to end up costing. So I suppose I'll move on to some questions which were sent through to me prior to today. And the first one was whether you can insure your equipment such as computers and things like that under your home and contents insurance policy? The answer to that is really possibly. Some insurers, they may give you a smaller limit under your contents insurance. Like it might say, for instance, we'll cover business contents up to $5,000, or we'll cover contents which are used for business up to $10,000. But it really depends on the individual policy. Like I know for a fact that the Commonwealth Bank CommInsure home and contents wording excludes specifically any business contents, and they won't cover it at all. A lot of other insurers have that same strategy, and they just simply won't cover business content. So it's important to check through your policy and see what your specific policy covers, and then if it doesn't cover that equipment, perhaps talk to us about coming up with a strategy to cover those goods. And particularly you should pay attention to, if you're using a laptop that you're taking away from the home, whether your home and contents insurance covers it while it's away from the home. I'll move on to that question that you've just asked me in a moment, Judy. I'll just ask these ones that I've got here first and let some questions build up. So I'm not ignoring the questions that you guys are asking. I'm just sort of allowing, for these to run through first. Someone sort of said that, public liability, no one comes to them and they don't visit anyone else. Well, it could be even things, as simply as going to meet with a client for the first time that you're going to engage in business with them. They might say, hey, let's meet and let's see if, we get along well so that we can do business. You're out and about for a business purpose, and if you cause injury to someone, your home and contents insurance and, any other insurance you have in place are likely not going to cover that. And also, even if it's something like, you're ordering some stationery for your business being delivered to the house, or you're ordering something for your business, and you ordered it in your business name, someone takes, the delivery guy comes there and gets injured. He takes an action against the person who he contracted with, which is your business. And, your public liability insurance under your home and contents isn't going to cover that because it was, to do with the business that you were working on there. That I guess stems into the next question of, what happens if someone comes to your home and hurts themselves? Well, they're going to sue you, or perhaps if they're working, then they may make a work cover claim, and then work cover will sue you to try to get their money back. So really that's where public liability insurance, which covers personal injury, will step in and provide cover for you there. Another question that was posed was, if you're going on site to a client and they want you to have your own insurance, well, you should have public liability insurance and professional indemnity insurance. The public liability insurance, of course, if you go to their work site and you injure one of their other workers, or you cause damage to their property. These things seem unlikely, but you really do see claims for them all the time, and it's always the strangest things that you wouldn't have been able to put your finger on or to predict how that could have possibly happened, but they do. These events seriously do unfold. And now professional indemnity insurance will cover you for, any civil liability arising out of a breach of your professional duty. So that basically means that if you make a mistake in the work that you've done for someone, or if you misplace some of their files or things like that, and then they allege that it created a loss for their business, then that's when they get able to sue you. So the question was, what if someone wants to sue you as a result of the work that you've done for them? Well, without professional indemnity insurance, you'll sort of be out on your own. So they could be, you could be working on a customer or client list, and this falls into, or you accidentally send someone's information to the wrong person, or all these sorts of things are all events where that could happen. And you'll be surprised the sort of strange intricacies that can unfold and someone attempts to hold you liable for. And I think the key is, people might say, oh, I won't be responsible for this or that, but the key is that if someone brings an action against you, in the legal system we have, you can't just ignore it. You're forced to defend yourself, and it's the legal costs that really, they can really cut in the face of one of these things. Someone's asked me whether they can have an agreement with their client to cover them for these sorts. So it's always good to chat to a solicitor and have an agreement which sort of, accurately sets out exactly what your liability and your responsibilities are. I would be very surprised if, a lot of the more serious businesses that you're dealing with don't require in that agreement you to have some form of insurance. And it's also trying to limit your liability. in that agreement and say, well, we're not responsible for anything, you know, I would say, without offending anyone or without trying to offend anyone, it's a irresponsible practice to sort of say, and it doesn't sort of portray you as a good business to turn around, yeah, I'm happy to do work for you, but I'm not responsible for any damage or anything that I cause. And at the end of the day, if the person that you're contracting with signs that agreement, then they have in effect voided their own insurance, because in their insurance policy it'll say, you know, you can't waive away the insurance to recover from a third party. You know, so by having that in an agreement, you're sort of, you know, you're prejudicing your client, and it's not really a good outcome for anyone really. And the other thing is, you know, although a contract might say one thing, it doesn't stop them coming and disputing, you know, how effective the provisions in the contract are. So you can turn around and say, I exclude all liability, but if they still want to have a crack and sue you for breach of the contract or for imposing an unfair term on them, well, there's not too much you can do about that. And once again, it's the defence cost. So someone asked what sort of thing a client can really sue you for. It could be anything really. I mean, without trying to give legal advice, like so many different causes of action can arise, and it's not necessarily that you end up being found liable, but in this country that we live, and it seems to be getting worse and worse, people are always looking to litigate, like something bad has happened to me, who can I blame? So it's really, you know, one of the companies that you're working for might have gone into liquidation, and then as they're going back through to try to figure out how this has happened, you know, why are they sort of going down the gurgler, and they find, oh, we're dealing with this virtual assistant, and you know, this wasn't coming back in a timely fashion, or this or that. They might try to have a go. It's impossible to what sort of things to sue you for. The answer is really anything and everything. Someone asked if you're a registered company under a trust arrangement with limited liability, does that adequately cover you? So I suppose firstly, there's nothing to stop someone from bringing an action just because you're a limited liability company in a trust arrangement. Someone can still bring an action against that company. And I suppose when you also owe duties personally as a director, so there's nothing to stop your director personally being wrapped into that. It does limit your liability, don't get me wrong, by being set up like that, but you still, you know, you're still mainly exposed, regardless of whether, you know, that doesn't negate the need for insurance completely. Like, without trying to too much detail about the legal side of it, but you may owe director's duties, and by not taking out insurance, then you would probably be found to be in breach of director's duties if that company ends up owing someone money because of your failure to take out insurance, and they would then come after you personally. So it's definitely not a fix-all solution to set up as a trust, but it's definitely, if you think that you're the sort of business that would benefit from that, it's probably chatting to a solicitor and maybe your accountant and weighing up the cost benefits of that. But it's important to keep in mind that your accountant might say to you, oh, yeah, this is the best thing since sliced to set up this way, but he's not qualified to provide insurance advice, so there is a limit to the scope of what they're advising you to do. So Judy, you asked whether, you know, having, you know, you've got your business contents insured under your home and contents, does it boost up your home and contents price? Well, if you add, say, an extra $10,000 to it, they're going to charge you based on the rate that they're charging, but you know, it depends on the insurer. It may or may not boost up your home and contents insurance premium. But I mean, you want to make sure that you're adequately covered for it. And if you're engaging in a business from home that the insurer is not aware of, well, that's something that you have a duty to tell them about anyway. So it's important to at least, you know, look at it and make sure the insurer is aware. And I honestly don't think that the cost of, you know, 10 or 5,000 extra contents on your home and contents would be much at all. Like, you know, you'd be looking at $50 or something like for a year. So it's definitely worth looking at. So public liability, Susan, in regards to your question, it covers any personal injury or property damage that you cause. So that's if someone gets injured while you're at their premises or they're at yours, a contract delivering something to you, like I said, or things like that. So it really, like, the triggers are personal injury, property damage. So you've just got to think, you know, if I injure someone or if I damage someone's property during my work, then they're the two triggers that are going to cause a claim, of course, subject to, you know, any exclusions that are in the policy, but the policy is very broad in terms of what it covers. If you have a contractor, yes, you ensure that they have their own insurance if they're a true contractor arrangement, because otherwise you can be sort of vicariously liable for anything that they do or any mistakes that they make, and you don't want to be making claims under your insurance for something that they've done. You sort of want to push that burden onto them if you can. But I suppose depending on what your relationship is with that contractor and how you want things to work, you could you know, agree to what's called indemnify them. So you agree to basically stand in their shoes and you'll completely cover any costs of any mistakes that they make. You could agree to cover those costs for them, but you need to chat to your insurer about it and say, look, this is what I've agreed to, this is who I've agreed to cover, and get it covered under your insurance, and have some clear contracts in place which says when you will cover them and when you won't cover them. Because if this contractor of yours is engaging in fraud or other dishonest type activities, you don't really want to be covering that sort of stuff anyway. So it's important just to be very clear, but generally speaking, yes, you should take out insurance for a contractor, and you can, or if you choose to do that, then you can include them under your insurance that exists. So in respect of the content that's on your website and recommendations that you make on your website, it's a bit of a funny area there, because I mean, when you're saying, like, if you accidentally publish something of someone's on your website and that's deemed to be a breach of your professional duty, well then, yeah, that's probably going to be covered by professional indemnity insurance, or if it's a breach of privacy or something like that. But a recommendation that you make to the world at large, someone's going to have a hard time pinning you down to that and saying, I went ahead and relied on this, and now I've suffered a loss because of it. Like, it would be a pretty hard case for them to run, I think. But it really depends on the situation of what you've put up there, and exactly what it's telling someone to do. But by all means, like, you might include something in your website which like, you might say, this is the scope of what we do as a virtual assistant, and then someone, you know, you do some work for someone and then they say, hey, this is what you said you were going to do on your website and this is what you actually did, therefore you're in breach. In that case, what's on your website could be sort of brought into it. But, you know, if you just made a recommendation to the world at large, you know, like saying, you know, your business will be better by using a virtual assistant, or, you know, you'll make more efficient use of your time, and then they try to sue you and say, no, I make more efficient use of my time. Well, it's you know, a bit too loose. I don't think they would ever get up trying to run something like that against you. But sorry to have a cryptic answer, but I guess it depends on the circumstances for that website question that you've asked there. So I'm not, in respect of Deb's question from Victoria, maybe you could clarify a little bit around when you say, wouldn't that make us an employee if the person we are contracted to, and it didn't finish the question there. So maybe if you could just sort of clarify around that last bit. But in respect of cyber insurance, in my honest opinion, it is still quite expensive for what the product is. It's getting cheaper. Basically, the only reason it's so expensive is because it's such a new product to the market, and there's so much uncertainty around how much claims cost and how frequent claims occur. So it's very difficult to say, but you know, very, very difficult for an insurer price that, but it is getting cheaper. And for those who don't know, cyber insurance basically covers like data breaches and things like that. So if someone gets into, you know, hacks you and gets to your computer system and steals your client info, and for instance, if they use ransomware software, which basically says you need to pay us $10,000 or else we're not going to give you data back, well, you know, you've sort of got a problem on your hands, and the insurance kicks in not only to pay the ransom, but if any damage is ultimately suffered, like for instance, if, you know, that information gets shipped off to Guatemala, all of a sudden they're committing fraud against all of these clients, well, it's also going to cover that loss if you're held responsible. It also covers for first cases, so if your data goes missing and you have to pay for the cost of replacing it, or if someone, you know, shuts down your computer from the outside, you get a new computer, covers that as well. So there's a whole bunch of different things that cyber insurance covers, but I suppose whether you need to have it depends, I guess, the gravity of the data that you're storing in your systems and how exposed you are. Like, just run a little few $100 computer and nothing stored in there. You know, you never keep anything of value and things like that. Your need becomes less. But I think, you know, if you feel like you're storing important data, or you have a real exposure to, you know, your client's data being stolen and used in a bad way, then it would definitely be worth looking at it. So what you were asking, Deb, when you agree to cover a contractor under your insurance, does that in effect make them an employee? That in itself doesn't make them an employee. So there's a number of tests that the ATO and work cover in the various states apply to see whether someone's an employee or they're a contractor. One of those is if they're all their risk sort of thing, but someone would have a hard time, you know, in the absence of, if they're working solely for you and they're covered under your insurance and sort of, you know, they just work on a casual basis and they just do like set menial tasks for you, well then they probably are an employee regardless of whether you cover them under your insurance, and you should speak to work cover or the ATO about that anyway, about the full circumstances of any contractors that you take on, because, you know, them coming under your insurance may well be the icing on the cake that makes them an employee, but that by themselves, that by itself won't make them your employee. And if you know, if that turns out that's the icing on the cake which makes them your employee, you know, the final thing which says no, they're no longer a contractor, well, you were sort of towing pretty close to the line of that person being an employee or a contractor anyway. So and you can get into all sorts of trouble if you're deemed to be running a contracting arrangement, which is, you know, calling someone a contractor when they're in fact your employee, and you're paying them on an ABN, but they only work for you in this or that. My advice in that respect is chat to the ATO and chat to the work cover authority in your respective states and explain the full circumstances of that person's employment, and then maybe ask them, hey, I'm thinking about putting this person onto my insurance. Is that gonna tip them over the edge and make them my employee? But yeah, basically, it won't be the, you know, them covered under your insurance alone, which does make them your employee. It'll just be a variety of other things as well. So yeah, I think that sort of answers most of the questions that we've got up there. But did anyone have any more general questions? Or anyone sitting there really super confused, or there's always something that you've just never understood or not known about that you think would be, you know, worth clarifying now? Because I'm more than happy to answer anything remotely related to insurance. Obviously, there's a scope to what I can give professional advice on, but yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions. Yeah, so if you're writing ebooks, so to just take a step back, the professional indemnity policy that we've set up specifically for the virtual assistants has been set up on the basis of the core business of what a virtual assistant does. We've spent, you know, a considerable amount of time trying to run through exactly the things that might include and what things that some people do that sit outside the box that we don't want to be automatically including and having everyone pay for. So writing ebooks wasn't one of the things that we deemed to be the core activities, but in saying that, on an individual basis, you can tell us, yeah, we're writing ebooks, and your professional insurance can be extended in scope to cover those activities. So when you when we go through the initial process with you, we get you to fill out a form, and it asks you if you do any activities outside a certain list, and you just have to tell about the ebooks activities. But you know, your exposure there is if someone, you know, someone comes to you and says, I want you to type this up for me, you know, in a way of ebook, you know, you end up doing something wrong, or, you know, and then they've gone to, you know, distribute it by then, they've already paid fees and they're going to come back to you, or perhaps, you know, perhaps the information in there, if it's actual one, is simply incorrect, or someone thinks that material in there is similar to something which someone else has written and another publisher already has rights to that similar concept, which I know a lot of people do children's books, and to me, just from an outlet's perspective, the concept of children's books are fairly similar. So it's not unheard of to have someone come along and say, oh, that's way too similar to our story here, and we want you to pay us some damages because you're on our story, sort of thing. To answer your question more directly, no, you wouldn't need a different type of insurance. It could include it under professional indemnity insurance that we've already arranged for virtual assistants. But the key is that that activity of doing ebooks won't automatically be insured under the policy. You would just need to tell us about that, and we could, expand the scope of what it covers. Yeah, I think I've tried to cover off quite a lot of stuff there, but I hope it's been a little clear for you guys. And I guess if there is any other questions or hasn't made sense, or you want me to go over something a little bit more, I'm happy to do that. But yeah, it looks like everyone's, doesn't have any questions for me.
Thanks so much, Morgan. That was excellent.
Oh, that's my pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of it, and I'm always glad to be able to help out you guys wherever I can. So if anyone has any questions that relate more specifically to their business and things you probably don't want to discuss in a public forum, I'm more than happy for anyone to give me a ring. Susan has my contact details, and like I said, we've been working with the virtual assistance groups for quite a few years now, so we're sort of well and truly across all the nuances of the risks that you guys face. So yeah.
No, thank you. That was excellent.
Yeah, no worries. And Judy just asked if they could put my detail on the AAP website. I believe it's already up there, but am I wrong?
Yeah, I think it should. If it's not, yeah, it definitely should be, Judy.
All right. So yeah, either way, the answer to that is yes, I guess.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks, Susan. You guys all have a good day. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.